So welcome. This is the Leaders Lab on December 9th for the theme next month, which is imagination. Next month will be January 2021. And if you're like me, we may be happy at that time to see the back of 2020. So what I usually do here is give an overview of my view of the packet that I wrote, some of the highlights, some of my favorite things. People come to this lab not even having cracked the file open yet. But if you have, I welcome those inputs too. And then after I finish, after about 15 minutes, we'll go into the challenges, the opportunities, the takeaways, the solutions. And that'll be a guided time limited kind of thing. But first, just like real church, I have a few announcements. We've just released our mid-year subscription offers. So if you know a colleague who's thinking of dipping their toe into Soul Matters and wants to try it for a few months, this is a really good time. They get a reduced subscription for everything that's there. The social media toolkit, the Chalice Home, the Soulful Home, the youth group packet, the regular packets, the worship packets, all that good stuff. Second announcement, besides mid-year subscription, is our next upcoming labs. These are my brainstorm labs and my leaders labs. January 13th will be the recorded leaders lab on the theme of February's beloved community. And just to give you a heads up, that was a hard one to write for children, but if you want a door into how to teach beloved community and the eighth principle and the work of blue and drum and what anachronisms, what antonyms mean, we have this little alphabet soup game to play with children about drum and blue. So you might want to attend that on January 13th, and then the first Wednesday, it's always first and second Wednesdays. January 6th will be the Brainstorm Lab. Sam's one of our regulars. We got Margie, who's one of our regulars. We brainstorm the theme coming up in 2 months. That theme will be April, and the topic is becoming. So there's my announcements. We'll jump into the 5 lessons of January. The first is imagine a new you that fits with resolutions and the new year, all that stuff. The second is imagine a world without COVID. We actually wrote a lesson on that. I'll talk more about it in a minute. The third is for Martin Luther King Day weekend. It's imagine a better world. The fourth is think outside the box. Maybe you think of it as sort of the science and reason kind of box. And the fifth is called Visit Other Worlds. And this was our deep dive into the value of escape and fantasy. And boy, did I have fun with that one. And on my movie night list this weekend is Mary Poppins Returns, because I wanted to see Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is one of the other worlds that we have the clip of. So there's 2 things I want to especially highlight. The first is that the theme of imagination allows us to do fairy houses. If you live in a climate like Sam does in California, maybe somebody in northern New Hampshire, it might not quite be the time of year for a fairy house, but hey, I do this and you guys use this as building blocks. You could even do them inside.
Snow fairy houses.
Fairy houses. Yeah.
Snow fairy. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Snow fairy houses. Yes. Oh, you could freeze little Dixie cups of colored water and build the fairies things. Cool. Thank you, Margie. So every camp I've ever done at GA, every camp I've done for the Pacific District, we've tried to do fairy houses because they are universally loved and successful. Tracy Kane And it turns out it's her husband who I talked to gave us permission to read this online and do anything we wanted with it. They're a really nice couple. But the rule is you have to build it with found materials, because there's this huge commercial business going on now selling little fairy sofas and fairy furniture. And no, she says, do it. It's all found materials. And I have to admit that my time teaching the elementary school camp, I think it was San Diego, no, it was Portland, Oregon. I was a little nervous of whether the sixth grade boys would go for this. I'm sorry, it's part of my prejudice, but it's based on experience. So the sixth grade boys, I was saying you could build troll houses, you could build fair. They're like, no, we're building fairy houses. And they were the ones who, when we toured around to visit each other's house, they were so proud of theirs. And they spent the rest of the afternoon free time building it. So proved me wrong. So fairy houses. The second was the discovery of Georgia Gilmore. She was a activist during the 60s civil rights movement, and they're just discovering this now, but she formed the Club from Nowhere, and she and other Black cooks cooked for the people involved with the civil rights movement. And her little cafe catering business was right next door to Dr. King's church. And he used to send people over, including JFK when he came to visit, to get her food. And so that's an important new piece that we're discovering. There's a whole Smithsonian article about Georgia Gilmore and the Club from Nowhere, and how we can help nourish people who are activists, even if we aren't ready or able to be a person on the front lines ourselves. So here we go, a little deeper dive into each of those four after giving you those two highlights. The new you. So I recommend, I suggest an object, a reflection object each time. This is my reflection object. It's a black pea. No, a black, just a black bean, which is of course a seed. And it's all I had in my house right now. And so I got these black beans that I'm going to make pozole stew out of later on today, to offer a suggestion that I suggest a purple seed, like coloring a purple lima bean to make it a purple magic seed, that you're going to talk about what seeds of change are you going to plant in yourselves. However, we're in COVID times. I don't want to send DREs out trying to find one lima bean white seed that's big enough to see. So use a black bean. Okay. This is all saying, I give you permission to modify these things in any way you need to. It doesn't have to be perfect, does it? And then the other piece of the new you. So I try to find really active things for the Explore It section, right? Because it has to be active. You've got those kids looking at you going, oh yeah, I'm bored. I've been on Zoom already for school. But if you make the traditional paper fortune tellers, they're also called cootie catchers in the old days, and you put in exciting things to be. What are you going to be? What kinds of dreams do you have? Like, are you going to be a vet? Are you going to be a comedian? Are you going to be a UU minister? Then they can read their fortunes after they make that. And that's, if you do the caring boxes, that's a really nice possibility to put into the box. Just a simple piece of paper. And then there's a link to instructions for how you fold a cootie catcher. It's kid culture, so they may already know. But you can put the instructions in with that. Second session. Okay, Leah gave us permission to use another one of her songs, as well as the imagination song that she has been commissioned to write just for us. And it's called Change to Come. And it's about living with COVID. This is what gave me the idea. It's the centerpiece of the idea of creating a world, imagining a world without COVID. So all these kids are like, they created a song that says, I'm tired of headphones, I'm tired of Zoom, I'm tired of not seeing my grandma, all these wonderful things. And she's created a song and they all sing it. It's beautiful and it's perfect for what we can do to anticipate the end of this. And there's also a little bear and butterfly. Where are they? Where's my two guys? Oh, they're over there. They're out of sight. Here, I'll get them just a sec. I was playing with them with my own grandkids. Here's the bear and butterfly puppets. They're the ones that I put in front of me when I write those scripts. And the script is that butterflies fluttering around, daydreaming, and butterflies daydreaming a world without COVID. And bear can't even think about it because it makes him so sad. He just wants, see there's, you just be like, oh, I can't even think about it. And butterfly brings him through her little dialogue or his little dialogue. The idea of imagining a world without COVID helps us hold it in our hearts and gives us hope. So that's a world without COVID. Thinking outside the box. So I didn't have a box. I thought I did, but I moved into temporary quarters for the next 6 months. And so what I have is a toilet paper roll holder. And what you say is, if we think outside the box, what can we imagine these things can be? Okay, you can imagine it's something to toot with. You can imagine it's a gerbil house, right? You can imagine it's a robot controller. And you encourage, just like stand-up comedians do, this is the stand-up comedian lesson, right? You take it one step farther than is reasonable. And that's when it becomes funny. If you watch any of the stand-up comedians, that's what they do. So can you imagine this one step further than what you might just start with, gerbil house? Anybody have a suggestion? Use your imagination. What could it be? Well, what if it's what if it becomes the antenna?
A spyglass.
That's right. Thank you, Macy.
Actually, that's a really nice connection with the Imagine a World Without COVID, the toilet paper tube. It's just a little.
Oh, you're right. I hadn't thought of that. Very nice, yes. So now it's empty. See, we don't have to hoard it anymore. Okay. In the Think Outside the Box, the sort of science-oriented one, I have a great link to a guy who does these science experiments. And he's got a lovely accent, and he's talking about how to build a Puffmobile, which is a car made with an index card and 4 little Lifesaver candy wheels. So if you don't like to use food products in your activities, there's also a suggestion for the 9 dots puzzle, which is the origin of thinking outside the box phrase, because you have to think outside the box of 9 dots. But if you don't mind using candy and you want to provide lifesavers in your care package or whatever, ask the families to get them for you. He has this way of making a Puffmobile, and he talks about, the axles and the wheels and that kind of stuff. That's something totally different from school, making a candy Puffmobile. And if you say we're going to make a candy Puffmobile, I think kids would attend. And that's our basic number one reason for doing this, isn't it? The 4th one, escape. So I made a Google slideshow for you all, just for you, so that you can just scroll through the slides and you have the YouTube clips of the moment that Mary Poppins and the kids jump into the chalk drawing in the old Mary Poppins. I have a clip from the moment that the little girl walks into the wardrobe of the Lion Witch in the wardrobe. the moment that Peter Pan grabs the children and helps them fly out the window. So it's the escape into the, there's a couple others. Oh yeah, of course, there's Harry Potter in the 9 3/4 train station, the moment he walks through that. So you can scroll through them and just lovely take the children into these places of escape, because sometimes that's one of the nicest ways to heal and to keep your hope alive. And that's a way to capture their imaginations. And then you can invite them to create their own world, fantasy world together by playing the game where each person says a snippet of a story and it goes around. And I have suggestions like start with a mushroom castle, I think it was, or a unicorn castle, and then what happens there and what tension is there going to be. So as you can tell, for me, after the wonderful time of the holidays, I like to draw the families and children back in. A lot of people have come just because of holidays, we hope, right, during COVID. But we also want to have some things that entice them to continue coming. That's my purpose. Because then you can do the bonding, then you can do the content, you can do everything. But if they don't come, there's no start at all, isn't it? Isn't it true? Last thing I want to mention, let me check. Yep. Is the family connection suggestion of a winter walk. This sprung from my brain, remembering a walk we took in Vermont, a bunch of grad students together. We walked through the darkness with no flashlights. We had them with us in case of safety, but we walked up to Beaver Pond and just stood there and watched in the winter time. And we don't think of winter walks if it's cold out or it's dark so early, but what would it be like to invite families on a socially distanced winter walk? Maybe share a little poetry. There's some suggestions for Robert Frost, or invite them to read their own. Bring a thermos of cocoa. It depends, on what you're doing and where you live. Okay, that's my sort of highlights for you. Maybe you get a sense of what I was aiming for. And now what I'd like to do is, there's a few of us and you can always lurk. You can just say, I want to lurk, but talk about any challenges that you had or are having. It might be about imagination, but it doesn't have to be. This is sort of our collegial time as well for our Soul Matters people. And so I would like somebody to volunteer to be a timekeeper and just hold up your smartphone. We'll do 1.5 minutes of sharing challenges. Would anyone like to do that? And you just hold it up and let it ring, and then you don't have to say anything. Thank you, Ashley. And I just will go through everyone on my screen. So Jen, I'm going to put you on the spot first because you're the first one right next to me.
No problem. I would say my biggest challenge right now, and it's unrelated to theme, but working with our younger kids, my age group is pre-K through 3rd grade. And we did that, to be able to serve more children this year. We divided up into 4 groups. And so for this younger group that I'm serving, it's just obviously a wide age range. And so to put that together with lessons, I feel like I'm serving the pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade, even the 2nd graders fairly well, but some of those older, more mature 2nd, 3rd graders, it's not missing the mark necessarily, but it's just, it doesn't keep their attention as well. We could go deeper with them, obviously. So yeah, that's my challenge.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And next on my screen is Macy.
I am mostly probably going to lurk, But yeah, as far as challenges go, I mean, I can really relate to what you were saying about just keeping kids engaged, enticing them to show up. I work with a pretty wide age range for our younger kids too, just because we have such a small group. A lot of the time with those younger kids, I mean, it's actually pretty much like kindergarten through 6th grade at a pretty small congregation. So yeah, that's sometimes a challenge too, making sure that we can provide something that, you know, everyone will understand and be able to engage with. And yeah, other than that, I mean, I work with the youth group too, and that work's going pretty well. There's definitely more of a consistent larger group showing up for that. So that is encouraging. And yeah, I mean, since the school year started overall too, I mean, we've had more engagement over like in both the groups. So yeah, so compared to summer, it's been better at least. So, and I'm glad to be back here. Thank you all for holding this space. I've been meaning to show up for these meetings and just engage with everyone a little bit more and absorb what everyone else is doing and saying. And finally, I set a reminder for my phone today for it to buzz and remind me to come on. So
Wonderful.
thanks. Yeah.
Glad to have you. Next on my screen is Sam.
Thinking you just would help if I pull out my microphone. I'm guessing you just called on me. My internet's a little unstable this morning.
Yes, that's why we're all looking your way.
Yes. Expectant waiting. You know, any recent challenges I've had, I've been blessed with some great troubleshooting volunteers who have helped pick up those little pockets, and which means I currently don't have any major challenges. I mean, there's always something small, but nothing really weighing heavily on me or my program. And I can't remember when I was last able to say that. So yay.
Oh,
I'll
it's a
pass it
melt in my
on.
soul to hear that. Next on my screen is Margie.
Hi. You make me so much more exotic than I am. It's actually Margit. It's a short I.
Okay.
But I'd love to be Margit. And if that's who I am to you, all right, I'll take it. So my challenge is just getting the opportunity to engage with January. I'm not there yet. So, but what one of the things that I plan to do is I've been cranking out parish porch kits for our younger kids. And I'm going to throw it to the families and say, I need you to use your imagination. What would you like to see in your kit this month?
Nice.
That's about as far as I've gotten.
Nice. Yep. Hey, collaboration. Next on my screen is Heather.
My challenges are reasonably few. One of my challenges actually is a compliment to you, Katie, for all the work you're doing. But one of my challenges, especially for the younger kids, is that my volunteers are finding these packets to be so rich, they want to share everything. And I'm limiting them to only half an hour because our parents are just, they're like, half an hour, that's it. That's all, we're logging off. And so I want to make that time as meaningful as possible. And my volunteers are digging in and they want to share everything, and everything's so perfect and sweet. And they really need to see this thing. So kind of helping them wheedle it down to like a few things and making sure they understand I can always send some of the video links to our home, to the parents at home. Mm-hmm. Those take it home packet parts are phenomenal. And then parents and kids who want to dig in can continue to do so. So it's been a challenge cutting everybody off at that 30, 35, 39 minute mark. Yes. Other challenge I have is I have some really good volunteers who I'm really happy with, but they don't want to do any planning with me. So they don't want to talk through which packets they want to do and help me get the supplies into people's hands, which wouldn't be a problem. I'm completely happy to take it over, but they also have a tendency to call me on a Thursday and say, oh my gosh, wait, no, I saw this other week. That looks way better. Can I do that? It's a challenge almost every week. Thank you, Ashley. I'm done.
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. And Ashley, it's your turn and I'll keep track of you.
Okay. I don't know that I have anything super huge. I just have, I don't have a lot of kids participating. And so yeah, it's just hard. Families have kind of just disappeared, and so it's hard to know what all they need. But doing our best, and there are some really good things happening, which I think we'll probably share about later. But yeah, it's just hard to not know what all is going on.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Ashley. And next is Margie.
Hi. I work more with the adults than with the children, although I have to say I get wonderful ideas from the children's information to use with the adults. Adults still like play, and last night we were doing the stillness, and I found a video of a glitter ball, just the insides of a glitter ball, and some music with it. That was just great for a transition, kind of. But in our children's program, I think the problem is, well, the parents are saying there's too much Zoom, we don't want to do it, we don't have time to do church, etc. And I don't see them participate much in the services unless they have a role that day. And some of our youth do, they're becoming the Zoom tech experts. So that's one way to pull them in a little bit. But the RE committee and the teachers are really not interested. The parents say, we don't have time, we're not going to do anything, that's it. Now they've sent home one package, which the kids were interested in, but I don't think there was any follow-up to it or anything. There was nothing during a Sunday morning about it. There are no Zoom sessions with kids at all. Some of them pop in and out during the service, but not that often, maybe during a song. Some of them play music during a song, which is one way of including them in more. But we don't have any kind of Halloween. We did a trunk or treat kind of thing, and they picked up at the end of it their chalice making supplies to make a chalice, but I don't see a follow-up. So yeah, my problem is motivating the RE community within the congregation to engage the families more.
Thank you so much, Margie. Lovely. So we have the age range. We have the third graders on the younger end of the, what do you do when you have a lot of preschool first, second graders? And then we have the K through 6. We have the no big problems. We have the keeping the engagement through January, and quite just for ideas that you're looking for. We have teachers who want to share everything and it's too much stuff. We've heard that before, we really have. And we consciously try to err on that problem rather than, oh, there's not enough, We have the parents who are reluctant. Boy, we've heard that over and over in each one of these sessions, that like we don't want more Zooming. And I was down sitting for my 2 grandchildren, and I was astonished how facile these first grade and third graders are getting with doing this. I wish my 89-year-old parents could be taught by my first grade granddaughter, and how to motivate the RE committee to keep going. So those are good problems to have, and think of things you might offer each other as solutions and takeaways. But next, we're going to talk about opportunities for your own ideas for imagination, for January, for continuing. We'll do it in the same format, but we're not going to lose these challenges because I want to come back to them too. So let's do it. We'll start from the opposite way. So Margie, why don't you go first, for your minute and a half of the opportunities that Soul Matters January, imagination, whatever is giving you. And you need to. Up, Margie. You need to unmute.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I haven't read the packages yet myself, but I've had some input that people are very interested in the science part of things and imagination. I've also had input that of imagining a time after COVID, like imagining 2024 or something like that. So I think we can do something with that that becomes positive and ties it in.
Yeah. Great, Margie. And next is Ashley.
So I also haven't been able to read the packet, but I'm excited hearing about it here. And one of the things we've discussed is having an in-person event centered around light and lanterns, and having the kids create lanterns from recycled materials in their home and then put them up around our church building. And having a time where we walk through. So I think that would be easy to tie in imagination to that. And I'm excited to explore that possibility. So yeah, I really love sending things either in a care package or mailing letters, and putting materials for the lessons in there, and then we do it together. So I tell the parents that we what materials we're going to use on what Sundays, and the kids bring those and they're prepared. And we really love making those things together and sharing them on Zoom. So that's been a really fun way to engage.
Wonderful. Yes, I do. There's a piece of me that wants to just write it for, here's your care package from Soul Matters. However, we have so many different types of churches, somebody with more than, 50 children. Can you imagine trying to mail that? And so anyway, but that's for me, huh? There. Okay, thank you, Ashley. Next on my screen is Heather.
All right. So we're in a situation where the last month, particularly, we focus a lot of our energy on our winter pageant. So we haven't been able to dig into the packets. So imagination, it seems like a natural fit for me to kind of do a re-diving into the packets and exploring all these themes. We're also working with some lower attendance and some classes that just aren't working with numbers. So I feel like a lot of the activities in this packet give us the opportunity to work across larger age spans. Specifically, I actually think it's in the youth group packet, there's a game about making space for each other around MLK. And it's basically a game where they just have to count from 1 to 20. Each person has to say one number, but we have to allow each other the space to do that and hear each other. So I'm going to use that as all ages. I'm going to have lap sitters through 12th grade all in that classroom. And that activity allowed me the opportunity to have an active participatory game that everyone can play. And I apologize. It's not, if it's only in the youth group packet, I apologize, but
it is, but that's okay. The only reason it was because our creative crew, the group of young adults and advisors and parents that I pull from, we don't meet until after the RE Imagination packet is done, because that comes out later. And Ivy's the one who brought that game to our group, and I was like, oh, this is great. But that doesn't mean we couldn't put it in the Facebook group. Maybe that's what I should do. You know, just say, here's how you play, count to 20. Thank you for that, Heather. Great idea. All right, Margie.
So one of the things that we've been talking about doing is, and this is, I think, gonna go over a couple of months, is create, so imagining a time without COVID, is create a time capsule of things that we've been doing differently, things that we've been doing well, things that we're missing, you know, whatever it is, you know, whatever people want to bring. And this will go across the congregation, but it'll be led from the RE group. Hopefully the high schoolers will take a little responsibility for it and help, but we want everybody to be a part of it. And so this will go from imagination into beloved community as we, you know, bring this together. So, but we'll start it, we'll launch it with Imagine after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
By just acknowledging, you know, this is what it is now. It's not going to be here forever. Let's create some memories around it, you know, and preserve it for a bit.
Lovely. I like
That's as
that
far as I've
idea. Time capsule. A bunch of masks. All right, next on my screen is Sam.
I heard you this time. I too am intrigued by a world without COVID, and I liked the play with the toilet paper tube, and I'm even thinking, like, what would you do with the empty hand sanitizer bottle?
Yeah.
And what would you do with, you know, that one last glove that's in the box? What would you do with the empty box of gloves? It's,
Oh, that's neat.
yeah, I think, you know, these things that we've been having to use on a daily basis, I have to wonder, what would you do with it if you didn't need them anymore? Yeah, and I love this idea of, you know, imagining, you know, the beyond, like with when you walk through the cabinet or step through the mirror, you know, take if you took the left path instead of the right. And I'm just, my brain is in Alice in Wonderland, and what would your Wonderland be?
Yeah.
I think that's really fun. And yeah, especially after the holidays when, you know, we have our set traditions sort of in this world, and how we do things, like, okay, now you can breathe and take that fresh start. What would you want to do different? How would you create your new world? I really like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun to play with.
Great. Thank you, Sam. I can't wait for COVID to be over. Macy, next on my screen.
I have not explored the packet yet, but mostly this brought to mind the work I've been doing with our youth group. We've been doing a lot of improv games and different games, you know, basically since spring. Twice a month we do game nights on Wednesdays. And like I said, our youth group participation has actually been pretty good. So it's like a good size group, usually between 4 and 8 kids each time. So like I said, a good amount of kids for games. And I just want to mention a couple of our favorite improv games so far have been, we've done Pitch Storm, which is one of our youth actually has a set of the cards for that game. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's it gives you like a basic storyline of a movie and whatever type of character I think it is. And so a person could do this on their own too. And the way we've been doing it is, you know, this particular youth, he pulls the cards, and then you have, I think, a minute or 90 seconds or something like that to, give this whole pitch for a movie, and one person plays the director. So it's been kind of a fun one. And we really did enjoy the Box of Lies game too. And that clip was pretty funny this last month. So yeah, so that was about all I had as far as thoughts. But yeah, I really liked the rest of the ideas too about imagining a different world and imagining with those items. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
Before
Lacey.
we go on, can I just say quickly, sorry to butt in, we had our Touch of Christmas fair outside, and we had Santa. We practiced Safe Santa. So everybody was masked, and there was a plexiglass screen. I just wanted to share this with you guys. These are notes that we found for Santa.
Oh. Oh, yes.
And every child mentioned something about COVID to him in person. And it was just, so I think this is going to be really lovely to imagine that with them.
Oh, good. Thank you, Margie, for sharing that. Margie, I'm going to call you Margie. Jenna, on my screen next.
Yeah, so there was a lot in there, a lot of good stuff. And when I thought about, I actually did read it ahead of time this month, and one reason I came. So the Imagine You and Who Will I Be, the first lesson. One additional thing that kind of sparked in my mind is we've been doing art together a lot. That will be an activity at the end where we're all working on art and doing conversation, but I also like to include movement. So I thought this could be a fun one to do charades with, that they imagine what they're going to be, as an adult or sometime in the future, and act that out for us all to guess. So that was one. And I really liked the Imagine a Better World. We're really trying to do more with a anti-racist lens in our programming this year. And so these have been really helpful. And so the body prayer, I really like that. We have done the social justice stretch sometimes, but this new one is just kind of more grounding and centering. I really like that. And I imagine we'll use that with our young ones and our teenagers as well. And I thought too, with the Imagine a World Beyond COVID, the puppet show that you included, Katie, I thought maybe of bringing that in with an anti-racist lens, rewriting it a little bit. And so there's some overlap there, and I thought I could do that. And then one last thing was the thinking outside the box made me think, some of us do like a wondering box at the beginning of sessions or periodically. It's not a regular thing, but I thought, what if the box is the wondering, like, oh, I wonder what's in the box, and then it's empty, and we have to think about, oh, well, what else can we do with this box? And kind of like your toilet paper tube thing, but with an empty box.
Lovely.
So, yeah, those were some things that I thought about for this month.
Great. Yes. Oh, so good. Let me check. Perfect timing. So now let's go into our time when we can, it's just like when you do a check-in circle with youth or children. Now that you've heard everyone's comments, challenges, and opportunities, what would you like to offer in terms of solution? Just like Margaret said, oh, I just got to share this coronavirus to Santa thing. Or solutions, takeaways, and we'll go right through everyone again. Before we do, I just wanted to see if there's anything I wanted to really bring out. Oh, I know, it was Heather's comment about how your teachers wanted to share everything, and you really appropriately want to keep the little guys to 30 minutes so they don't just turn into pretzels in their little bodies and get really bored watching a screen. So one of the things that came up a couple of months ago was use of Padlet, which is an app that people are using. It's almost as if you create a board and there are places to say, here's the video that you could watch on this. Here's a story time you could watch on this. And if you investigate Padlet, is anyone on this screen using it? No, okay. Well, I commend it to you. There's several people in our Soul Matters that are using Padlet more and more, and it's evidently very easy to build. And it would be a way to share more content for the families if they wanted to follow through at home. And then the other one was all those youth group games that Macy mentioned. I have to tell you about the youth group game that we just put in the Imagination Youth Group packet, because I think it'd be fun for anyone to play. My husband and I are playing it now because I had to test it out, and we're like, oh, let's play it. It's Psych, P-S-Y-C-H. Taken the country by storm. Ellen DeGeneres has created it. It's free. Of course, there are in-app purchases, but you can always find the categories that are free. And it's just fun. You know, you get it's like sort of like Two Truths and a Lie. You try to come up with a answer to the question that pops up on your screen that isn't true, and then if someone votes for you, you get points. And you can play it as quick as, 7 little rounds while we're waiting for grandma to get on Skype, that kind of thing. So there you go, 2 of my little challenges, two of my little solutions. So let's go through reflections, and I think, yes, we're doing fine. Let's just start with Jen again. We'll just go right back down the tree.
Sure. I guess one thing that has been successful for us in getting people engaged and remembering that there is church and that it can serve them well, is that we have been doing what we call UU in a box, or church in a box. That I think I first got the idea of attending one of these Soul Matters in the summer or early fall. And we've done a few. We do have a program. We have 65 families. And so we do it on a quarterly basis. And the first one that we did was sending out items where they could make a sacred space for themselves. So a little cloth, like an altar cloth, and a little battery candle and chalice, and a variety of things that they could do to make a sacred space. And then this last one we did some clay and stress relievers and holiday generosity sort of stuff, an ornament that they could make for an adult in their family or circle. Anyway, that has been really popular. And I think, the fact that we sent the first one the week before RE started really invited people to come back. And anyway, we've had good feedback, and it's been really successful for us. So that's been a joy for us.
Great, thanks, Jen. Next on my screen is Macy.
Yeah, I was thinking as Jen was talking to, actually, that our take-home materials have seemed to make a impact in attendance, kept people a little more engaged, and I've heard multiple people give feedback, because we've been doing actually collaborative, all generation paper bags full of things. Like there's coloring sheets. I think this time I'm going to do these little pine cone Christmas trees that I'm going to work on in the coming week, as well as salt dough, chalice snowflake templates, cards, and then we usually do a cookie exchange. So congregants are going to bring cookies, and then this last time we just had one person kind of organizing and bagging everything. But I just know I've gotten feedback from people that it's been like keeping them feeling like they're part of the congregation, and they just appreciate being thought of. So it's been really good. And other than that, like I mentioned before, the games have really been a hit. And so I think just keeping it fun, and also leaving time for personal connection that can just be kind of lighthearted, has been really what's keeping everything together for us. So, and our congregation really likes having the coffee hour after church too. We always have like a Zoom coffee hour, and I'm actually not really sure how they've been doing it lately, because oftentimes I have my children's programming while it's going on, but we were doing breakout rooms for a while, and so there was some trial and error in how to best do that where it's not overwhelming, like so many people talking. But thank you again, Ashley. I do have to hop off because I have a 1 o'clock meeting, so I figured I should probably just say bye now.
Bye, Macy. Thanks
And
for
thank
coming.
you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Great. Next on my screen is Sam.
So in talking about youth and having different like conversation starters and games, I stumbled upon these and they're called We Connect cards. If you haven't heard from them or heard about them, and it's 60 questions, and there are some that are on self-reflection and others that are fun and silly and others that are like deep thinker questions. And they're great for youth and getting some thinking going and just having open conversation, and they're fun and they're neat. But then I also just wanted to offer encouragement. When you think families aren't paying attention, they are. You know, when they're not coming around, they're still listening, and they're still appreciating care packages, and they're watching the videos. And I know I've had those moments of no one's really getting what I'm sending out. And then all of a sudden I get this email or this family that I haven't seen in months pops up in chapel. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, we saw your email and yay, you're still out there. So they're out there and they're listening. And though they may be overwhelmed and needing to step back from church for a while, they're still there. So I encourage you to keep plucking ahead and keep moving forward, because our work is not for naught.
Nice. Thank you, Sam. Next on my screen is Margaret.
Started using the wrong mouse. So somebody had mentioned lanterns, and it made a light bulb go off over my head, and that's what I was thinking about, that connection with, you know, when in cartoons and whatnot, when somebody has an idea, that light bulb goes off over their head, and that would be a really fun connection to the imagination piece with lanterns. And when you were mentioning chalk drawings, it reminded me of so dating myself, God, this is years ago, the Simon. Do you remember? Oh, you know, my name is Simon, and the things I draw come true. It's a very sweet. So that, you know, I was imagining for a younger crowd, for my pre-K, kindergarten, 1-year-olds. And then, I mean, I'd have to take a look at it again, but Simon was parodied on Saturday Night Live by Mike Myers, who loved to poke fun at all things that were British. So I might take a look at that again for maybe the older kids, just as a little, you know, you're older, you get this type of thing. So yeah, I'm trying to think. And I wrote down a ton of ideas about, yeah, and imagining, you know, you're talking about fairy houses, and certainly in Massachusetts, we have snow still. It's very exciting. It didn't melt away. You know, where do fairies go in winter? You know, we always see, you know, pictures of fairies in summer, and, you know, oh, got a feather flying around, and whatnot. You know, that's the classic, out in the field with all the flowers. But what do they do in the winter? You know. And there's a wonderful book, The Root Children, that, you know, is a great connection. Oh, look at the kitty.
Yeah.
So dear.
Right. Thank you,
Sorry.
Margaret. Next is Heather.
I have two very quick ones. I love the idea of the fairy house. I had already gone to Snow Fairy House. I think that in our area of Illinois, it's very likely we'll be able to just do something out in the snow. But then I'd like to do it at the very end of the month and lead right into, as we respect our community and our beloved community, even though we're in distant places, I'm thinking of like a secret elf or a secret snow fairy who could go shovel a sidewalk for one of our next people in line the next month. So we'll do fairy houses, and then now you get to be the fairy and go help someone in our community who might need their walk shoveled. So I'm going to tie that in. And then the other thought I just had was going off of Jen. We too are dealing with some weird ages in some of our classes, and we changed our pre-K to second class to be lap sitters to second, because we had some nursery kids who were missing and really liking being on camera and making funny faces. And so we invited all of our lap sitters to attend that class and decided that we can still aim for that kind of older age in that segment and still get through to lap sitters if they're sitting on laps. If they're preschooler or kindergartners, they can handle that 4th grade material a little bit if their parents heard it and can help explain it as they go. And we're actually in a situation now where we're dealing with, we may have to include all the way up through 5th grade in that group. And so we're going to be dealing with the same thing. And I think we're pretty well coming around to aim it to that like 3rd to 5th grade group and have like a moment or two of interactive finger play or puppet show so that we can engage those youngers, but then still gear the rest of it to the older kids because the younger kids' parents can help them keep up.
That's an excellent idea. I hope all our people listening.
Yeah, and we're calling them lap sitters so that it can be kind of open age.
Yep. Great. Okay, next on my list is Ashley.
So one of the things that I've gotten a lot of feedback about actually is in the monthly mailings that I've done. I list birthdays for that month. And so kids, and then our RE committee writes cards. And I have one of the pre-K teachers that volunteered to call and sing to each child who has a birthday.
Oh.
And I heard even from parents of youth that they look in the letter to see if their birthday's in there. I had no idea it would mean anything to anyone, but the kids are looking at it. And so anyway, that doesn't really have to do with imagination, but it's just fun. I'm glad that it has some meaning for them.
Great.
You know, I think I shared my other ideas about the lanterns and things.
Yeah, and obviously those were important. And next is Margie.
I don't know, there's lots of good ideas in here. I know that keeping in touch is probably the first most important thing. Imagination is a good time to do it because everybody loves to do that. If you're talking New Year and imagining life without COVID, or, you know, a life where you're back to school, or what's going to happen, kind of, I think you could engage families in that, you know, in January timeframe. So I'm excited about the ideas I've heard here. Want to go back and read more about them. And so thank you everyone for all your ideas.
Thank you. Well, that's what this is about. And I just want to say thank you for joining me. I'll close with these words from our team lead, Scott. In the soft light of this flame, may our lives shimmer anew. May we notice new possibility in those relationships that seem lost. May the turning of the year give birth to a dream. May the emerging light pull a new story into view. May what is give way to what might be. May we believe again in the world we imagine. Blessed be everyone. Thank you for attending. Hope to see you next time. And I will stay on as long as you want, if you want to chat or ask questions or brainstorm more. I'm going to turn off the recording now.